So when I go back to the complaining and the whining, if we don't introduce might, if we don't have enough might to do something about the complaining or the whining, then in effect, what is happening is that our ability to make a difference is being taken away from us. The thief is being successful in taking it away from us and left people with just complaining and whining. So in this day, what has been encouraged, people have been encouraged to do, if you don't like the current situation that's happening around you in your community, in your city, in your state, in your region, in your country, and you have the opportunity to participate, don't just complain and whine, but use your power, your energy, or strength to express your desires versus the current facts or realities that you're experiencing. And that's summed up in one word in today's world as vote. But I'm not talking about voting today. We're talking about in life in general, changing the dynamic in life in general. Isaiah helps tell this story. Our Bible verse comes out of the book of Isaiah, the 40th chapter, and it starts at the 27th verse, 27 through 31. And it reads, "Why sayest thou, O Jacob, and speakest, O Israel, my way is hid from the Lord, and my judgment is passed over from my God." Here, the prophet Isaiah is speaking to the children of Israel about the way that they are living their lives, about what the message that the Lord has given him to share with the children of Israel. And the message here is to the children of Israel is speaking about the way that they're living. He's pointing to the fact that they are complaining. So why do you complain? Or why do you whine like God can't hear you? In other words, they were behaving, they were complaining, and they were whining as if though they were hid from the Lord, and that the Lord wasn't actually there present with them, that the Lord couldn't see them, that the Lord has somehow lost track of them. So that's why Isaiah is speaking to them this way. Why are you complaining or whining as if though somehow you are able to do this in a corner and God can't hear you? God can't see you. If you think about it today, people complain and they whine in a way that thinks that maybe they might be the only one that hear the complaining or whining. But what we must know is that the one who created us all hears it all, sees it all, knows it all. So this is Isaiah talking to the children of Israel about why are you living this way? Why are you complaining and whining as if though you somehow are doing this outside of God's presence? You're complaining and whining about what your life and what you have in your life as if though you're complaining that God has not provided for you or provided a way for you. As if though he somehow left you somewhere and he can't see. He goes on to say, "Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary. There is no searching of his understanding. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might, he increases strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Our Bible verse comes out of the book of Isaiah, the 40th chapter, verse 27 through 31. And here the Lord continues through Isaiah the prophet to share with the children of Israel that he's not a God that just comes and goes. He's not a God that's here when you gather together, and then once you separate and go your separate ways, God somehow, just like you separate from the presence of other people, you somehow separate from the presence of God. And in many ways, this is the way people, even in my life experience, this is the way people many times live. They're more concerned about what the pastor or certain church leaders, the church members, think about what they're doing in private or in their own away from the church than they are about what the Lord sees, what they do and what they don't do, what they complain about, what they whine about in the presence when they're away from, many times physically, from the church leaders. And they do that as if though, although the church leaders might not see them, as if though God doesn't see them. Somehow they've been led to believe that this normal way of behaving is the right behavior. That somehow the Lord comes and goes, and he's only there when they gather at the place of worship. But what we must realize, God is everywhere. He's always present. No matter where we go, God is present. That's what Isaiah is trying to get the children of Israel to recognize. He's also trying to get them to recognize that the Lord gives power. He gives power to those who are faint. When a person is faint, they are weak. So the Bible is saying that the Lord gives might, because we learn that might means what?
Power to do something.
Power to do something. So the Bible is telling us that the Lord gives power to the faint. So that means that if we would choose to acknowledge him, the Lord will give power to those who are weak. And the Bible goes on to tell us that he gives strength to those who have no more might, those who are out of strength. He gives energy to those who are out of strength. And then this is the part that I like about the scripture. He goes on to give a couple of examples. And a couple of examples he gives is at a point in time in life where one is thought to be at your peak from the standpoint of power, at your peak from the standpoint of energy, at your peak from the standpoint of strength. He talks about being a youth, and being a young man or a young woman. It is during, or a young adult, in other words. It is during that time he's talking about where you are at your peak. But he's acknowledging that the fact that although that is that peak time, when you have that peak might, that peak power to do something, that peak force or strength, that peak energy, what he's saying, even though your present conditions may not show it, understand that there are even you who what? Faint. You who go through some adversity that cause them to lose their strength. Have you ever heard of a youth having any problems or challenges in their life? So if you have, that's what the Bible is talking about. Although you can have all this, you can be at this point in your life and have this power, this strength, this might. There are some youth who, with all that power, strength, and might, they still end up fainting, falling short. there are also some young men and some young women who fail. Have you ever known of any young adults who failed or who have encountered some problems in their life that crippled them from being able to achieve the peak or the vision of their life that they thought they would like to have? So the Bible is speaking about the fact that it didn't just talk about everybody. It talks about those who were considered to be the ones who have the most might. But he's calling out the fact that even they have their moments. And this is what happens in their community. This is what happens in their vineyard. But what the Bible is saying, even although they may go through as these examples, he's saying that the Lord is the one that will renew their might. The Lord is the one that will renew their power. The Lord is the one that will renew their energy. The Lord is the one that will renew their strength if they would choose to decide to trust him. He would give them a fresh strength. He would give them the ability to express their present condition of what the Lord can do, contrary to what they're going through. And see, the key is learning how to understand that the Lord, that definition, we learned that the fourth definition of the word might mean used to express a present condition contrary to fact. How you speak about a present condition contrary to the fact that you are encountering. This is what the Lord is talking about. He can give everyone, including youth and young men and young women, the ability to express their present condition contrary to the fact. When you look at the word fact, what you're talking about is the current reality. So the current reality might say one thing, but the Lord is the one that can give all people, especially youth and especially young men or young women who are falling or are fainting or going through a difficulty. He can give everybody the strength or the power they need, the fresh strength they need to express their present condition contrary to what they are experiencing. In other words, not accepting their present condition as being the only path forward for themselves, if they would choose to trust in him. That's what he's talking about here. He said when they do that, he'll renew their strength so that they will be able to run and not be weary. They will be able to walk and not faint. They will be able to overcome those circumstances that were limiting them if they would choose to acknowledge them. And that's what we're talking about today. What Isaiah is doing is raising the fact that the children of Israel were living in a way that suggests that they could live some way, they could behave some way, they could complain about things, and the Lord would not see. That they can somehow be out of the presence of the Lord. And when we choose to live in a way that we acknowledge that the Lord is with us everywhere, and we learn to choose to trust him in spite of the circumstances that we are facing, that's when we begin to experience this renewed might. For what purpose? For the purposes that we have in our life, for the purposes that we desire the Lord to provide support for the purpose of God's will. But we need, each day, we need this renewed power. We need this renewed energy to move closer to the purpose and not give up. See, because the complaining and whining doesn't necessarily have to be just your complaining and whining. It can be complaining and whining from people in your vineyard about who? About you. Have you ever heard of somebody being who is not confident? And how that if you put a person who is not self-confident, you put them in an environment where they're around people who those people don't their ethics and values, they choose not to care about other people around them, those other people can say things. They can express themselves in a way, or express themselves about that person in a way where that person feels even less confident. In effect, stealing that person's ability to become what they're capable of being. So what we have to understand is that this is a reality. The complaining and whining is not just about what the individual does, it's about how other people speak about others. Someone who always levies negative comments about people, on other people. They can continuously do that, complaining and whining. And if that person does not get this idea of deciding that the Lord is present, this person is not living life as if though the Lord is present. That person could be separated and put into a little corner through those comments and believe that they're incapable in life. So that's why this notion of renewed might for a purpose is critical. We need fresh strength every day. Some days when you have goals and you're moving towards your goals, some days may not be as productive as other days. Sometimes you have to reevaluate goals and change goals based off of what some situations that you confronted on that day. Maybe you have to adjust them. The key is, if you're not careful with this idea, you must recognize that this renewed might is what God wants his people to have. There will be words that are used in society. There will be words that are used in your vineyards. What we have to do is to monitor the words that are used about us, and we have to monitor the words that we use ourselves, and make sure that we don't allow in the words that we use for the thief to steal, to kill, and to destroy the purposes that we set out for ourselves. Let's go over to Job. In Job, the 13th chapter, let me have a reader starting at the 14th verse.
Wherefore do I take my flesh in my teeth and put my life in my hand? Though he slay me, yet will I trust him, but I will maintain mine own ways before him. He also shall be my salvation, for a hypocrite shall not come before him.
Okay.
Hear diligently my speech and my declaration with your ears.
Okay. Job specifically said that this is his speech, didn't he? So he's using his energy, his might, to speak about his situation and his feelings about his situation, is he not? Job said, I put my own life in my own hands. But he's also defending himself. He's saying, he's basically acknowledging that he's not a hypocrite. He's tried to live in a way that shows that he trusts the Lord. I've tried to use, and how did he do that? He's saying, I tried to use my might, my power, my strength before now to show that I hope and trust in the Lord. Well, Bible scholars, and this is why it requires Bible scholars to understand this, what did Job, the first chapter, talk about how Job lived his life before all of this started happening? What did the Bible say about how Job demonstrated that he hoped and trusted in the Lord? How did the Bible say, what did the Bible say in that chapter 1 that gives you insight to let you know that before all of this happened, he used his strength, his power, and his energy during the course of his days, not just one day, but at different points throughout the day, in different ways, to show that he had a trust and a hope towards the Lord. What is one thing that he did? The Bible said that he did. Bible scholars?
Prayer.
He prayed. Did he just pray for himself?
For his family? For you?
He prayed for his family. So the Bible said that by him doing that, what that tells you is that if you know nothing else, that tells you that he has some kind of trust in who?
In the Lord.
In the Lord, in God. Exactly. So by that being the case, what Job is saying here, He said, the evidence is already clear from the way that I was living my life before all of this happened. So he's defending the fact that I tried to live in a way that demonstrated that I trusted in the Lord. I used my strength and my might. Because in order for you to pray, do you have to use power? Do you have to use strength? Do you have to use energy in order to pray? So scientifically, do we have to use energy to do things?
Yes.
Yes, you do. That's the truth of life. That's the truth of life. You have to use energy in order to do anything. It requires energy. So what Job is saying, I use my power, I use a part of my strength to pray, which means that he had a respect or a trust in the Lord. And for that, the Bible acknowledges in the way in what God blessed him and his family with, his lifestyle. The Bible acknowledges that the Lord could see this and favored him as a result of it, him and his household.
Oh, praise be to God, from whom all blessings flow. It is our prayer at Clay Family Ministries that your life has been increased with the increase of God through this study. We appreciate and are thankful for your fellowship during this life skills study segment.